Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Premium Public Video Forecast Discussion. Of course, it is Friday, July 25th, 2025, and I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino, CDM number 9. So, are you ready for the heat and humidity? Because it is on the way today with temperatures spiking into the 90s. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the tropics, and already people are posting all sorts of interesting model solutions for tropical systems. We'll dive into some of the details on that. And of course, if you're interested in this type of content every day, definitely check out the Premium Consulting membership, only $15 a month. Or if you just like this channel, just like, share, and subscribe. It actually helps out quite a bit. So let's dive into the information. Right now, the tropics are quiet for most of the region, especially around the intertropical convergence zone. You barely have any thunderstorms. A lot of dry air still in place here. It's something just to keep an eye on when we take a look at the model guidance. We have some thunderstorms here trying to fester around a tropical wave, but nothing's really developing anytime soon. We have an upper level low around the Yucatan Peninsula. And then when we shift towards the Gulf, we are watching this little spin up right here. It is a circulation. It is a weak low pressure system, but the key word there is weak. It is very weak. So this is going to be drifting towards the Texas coast today. Once it makes landfall, that's it. It's done. There's still a 10% chance of development, but I mean, right now the convection is very much disorganized. There's a good chance to see some heavy rainfall like around Houston, but no actual low pressure system is likely to really take hold. You can see here on the surface winds. Let's zoom in on this. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Now you might be wondering, Stephen, why isn't this being considered a PTC, right? A potential tropical cyclone. Well, for one, the organization here is kind of stretched out here. You can kind of see the trough here is kind of warped. You certainly have a circulation here, but notice the winds really aren't all that strong. In fact, your strongest winds are well away from the circulation, so it's taken on more of a cold core circulation than a warm core. Normally, when you have your warm core, your strongest winds are here. And right now, the weakest winds are here. So it could still develop, but the clock is ticking. Okay. So I doubt we'll see any type of official development out of this, but certainly some showers and thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast around Texas and Louisiana would certainly be a threat. Now, let's take a look at the model guidance here. And a lot of people, especially on the European guidance, is taking a fancy to posting pictures of tropical cyclones impacting Florida in about 10 to 15 days. So what's really going on here? Well, we do have indications about roughly 7 to 10 days out of a tropical wave here that is currently not even on the map yet. It's still over Central Africa, kind of doing its thing, right? So we have some time to actually get some real observations on this. But by this point, we're getting towards late July, early August, and the Cape Verde season does start to pick up in activity. So we clearly see in this indication here some sort of warm core organization here. When you see a spike like this, hey, something is definitely brewing. And the model guidance tries to drive this, but this is all developing around a lot of dry air. So it has a lot to overcome. But the model guidance suggests, hey, it does. And this clearly basically looks like a tropical storm. It has a good structure in terms of the structure. Very nice structure. You have nice outflow here, signal here, inflow here, deep tropical moisture around the low level center. So that suggests warm core circulation, vertical circulation. So certainly all the signs are there. But understand that this depiction takes you through the Greater Antilles, which means a lot of mountainous territory, which means a lot of disruption in your low level circulation. It develops in a dry, hostile environment initially. So there's that factor to consider. And also, if it does get through here, okay, then it moves towards the Bahamas and then it runs into a lot of shear because of a trough that is lifting out. So there's a lot going against this, but it does make sense climatologically for something to get going here. And the model guidance does suggest, and this matches up nicely with the MJO, moving into a more favorable phase around this time. So it would make sense that, hey, the tropics should pick up in action a little bit, but I wouldn't take any details on this, okay? As I always say, prepare now, chill later, okay? And what I mean by that is that, hey, check your batteries, your water, your non-perishable foods. You know where your exit plans are. That way, if a storm actually approaches, you're not panicking, you're prepared, and you know exactly what to do, which is always the best way. And then you can have everyone else run around and and buy 40 pounds of toilet paper and all that other nonsense that happens every time there's a storm. So, again, nothing on the horizon right now, at least for the next 7 days. We'll keep an eye to see what goes on with what comes off the African coast, but that is pretty much about it right now. Now, another thing that we're watching, of course, is our weather pattern. And there's been a lot of talk about, oh, well, mid August or early August is going to be very chilly. And I've been kind of putting some, I guess you call it cold water on that idea, saying, yeah, we'll have some drier days and the low temperatures will be a bit cooler. But I'm not so gung ho about the idea of well below normal temperatures for an extended period of time. You might pull off a morning low temperature, which would lead to an overall day below normal. But the reason why I've been saying that is that not much has changed in terms of the driving factors for the weather pattern. You still have a nice upper level low around the Aleutian Islands 10 days from now, as you do right now. You see that setup there. So that's not changing all that much. You're not seeing a lot of change in the orientation of the trough over Canada, Eastern Canada. That's been a theme. Only thing you've really seen, which you should see as we get into August, is that the polar jet stream's creeping a little further south, which is typical for this time of year because, hey, guess what? We're heading towards fall. I know, I'm excited too, but we're not there yet. So when I see this, I'm always a bit skeptical in strong anomalies. And wouldn't you know it, when you take a look at the model guidance and we start to get under the 10-day period, well, look at that. The polar air mass modifies much faster than what it was showing in days 11 to 15 because 11 days 11 to 15 in model guidance, you have less resolution and a lot of error, so you have to adjust for that. And hey, look, there's our dry air, but look. See, it's already getting filled up with a lot of moisture already because it's still late July and August. So you get a faster rebound. That's what I'm saying is that, yeah, there's definitely going to be stronger cold fronts on the way, but the rebound is going to be faster than what the model guidance is suggesting. So wouldn't you know it, now that we're starting to get a little bit closer into this forecast period, instead of, just like this type of anomaly here where like you're 2 to 6 degrees below normal, well, now it's starting to back off a bit. Okay, now it's showing, hey, look, there's going to be some morning lows. And if you look at the raw data, it's generally the morning lows because we get a shot of drier air, but it doesn't last. It's already shifting towards near normal over much of the interior. And you're starting to see that shift away along the coast as well. If you zoom in, it's basically focused on the Pine Barrens, which makes sense because the Pine Barrens you see with high pressure and control, and you got a clear environment with low humidity, and your temperatures are going to drop. Okay, that's kind of one of your cold spots here in the region, believe it or not. So that doesn't surprise me one bit, but look for this to modify very, very quickly. So maybe a day or morning or two, and that is about it, rather than any type of prolonged type of scenario. So let's talk about today. Oh, it's getting steamy already. Again, this is at 9:30 a.m. and temperatures are already in the lower to mid 80s throughout much of the region. Look at your dew points in the 70s, pushing into the mid 70s. It is steamy out there. And you can see on the latest radar and surface map from WeatherTap, you see this prefrontal trough here, that's going to spark off a few thunderstorms later on. But this cold front is the main event for later on, right around rush hour, as this drops through with scattered showers and thunderstorms. So let's break down the whole setup here. So first of all, let's talk about the heat and humidity. Look at the precipitable water values rising above 1.5 inches. The atmosphere, as you can see, is steamy. It is moisture loaded. It is ready to produce very humid conditions. Then you combine your 850 millibar temperatures over 18 degrees Celsius. So when you bring that down from 850 millibars down to the surface, that supports temperatures in the 80s and 90s. You throw in the urban heat island effect, you're talking about mid to upper 90s. And so we have a heat index for this afternoon Luckily, it's just one afternoon. Basically, in the lower to mid 100s. I would not be surprised if someone gets 108, 109 degrees out of this right in this area here from Newark down through Philadelphia, because you got this pooling of deep tropical moisture surging in. You have enhancement of sinking air, and you just have a perfect combination for some dangerous heat here. So definitely, I've been talking about this for a couple of days now. Use caution, be safe out there. So while that's all happening, atmosphere right now isn't all that unstable. So when I'm seeing this setup here, I don't see this as a widespread severe weather event. But consider we have a lot of tropical moisture. We have a cold front coming in with drier air. Let's go back to the precipitable water values. Dry air back here, and a maritime air mass is waiting to push southward, uh, lined up here. So you got two other air masses, one that's cooler but still plenty of moisture, the other one colder and drier. So you have this interaction getting ready to set up in the atmosphere, and you have minimal instability right now. But if you can get one of those thunderstorms to break the cap, which isn't all that impressive right now, and you introduce all these other factors, you can end up with some thunderstorms that can be, well, pretty nasty. So, but take a look at the upper level winds. Again, your polar jet stream's well to the north up here, 250 millibars. You see a nice circulation from the west southwest, transporting a tropical moisture. This trough digs a little bit further south this time, just a little bit compared to where we've been. We've been where the base of this trough basically is up towards central Quebec, now is dipping down into the St. Lawrence River Valley. Little tiny differences is all that matters. And the reason why that matters is because that finally allows your cold front to get driven south. So right now, again, at 500 millibars, transport of moisture continues. 850 millibars, transport of moisture continues. But notice that slight shift to the northwest here. That is the difference as to why this cold front is going to be moving through. And then once it gets to about here, because all the winds are from the west at all levels of the atmosphere, that's going to cause our cold front to stall out. Basically, it runs out of steam and basically sets up and stalls out and becomes a real pest for the rest of the weekend. So as we stand right now, this substance here is going to enhance our temperatures for this afternoon. Here comes the trough. Again, nice lifting here associated with it over the St. Lawrence River Valley. That won't get that close to us, but close enough to spark those thunderstorms. And what we're going to be watching for is cumulus starting to, you already start seeing it right there, okay? Starting to take shape and march its way southward. And on the infrared satellite picture, again, you can see the enhancement of the sinking air. You can see the temperatures warm up. You see a kind of dark shade that kind of starts to show up here. And then here's our cold front pressing south. So let's break down what this means. So first of all, the upper level winds for this weekend, again, not that impressive. Generally from the west, cold front is going to be aligned west to east. So that means it's going to be awfully slow to move. So that's going to be a factor for us, along with the showers and thunderstorms being slow to move. 500 millibars, not as strong lifting, but there is something brewing here. So again, for today, not that strong, right? Not that impressive at 500 millibar PVA. But for Saturday night through Sunday, we do have a little bit of stronger shortwave coming in. And that shows up even better at 850 millibars. Again, for this evening, so-so, right? And then for Saturday night, tomorrow night into Sunday, a little bit stronger lifting. And while that lifting is organizing and taking shape, is going to be interacting with all of that deep moisture. So for this evening, pretty good precipitable water values, over 2 inches, torrential downpours, frequent lightning, hail may be an issue. An isolated severe thunderstorm is going to be capable of producing hail and downburst wind gusts over 55 miles per hour, and torrential downpours capable of localized flash flooding. So we're going to have to watch that this evening. Then, as these thunderstorms move through, again, look at that lifting. It kind of drops south. There's our maritime air mass. There's our influence from there. And that lines up a nice gradient here for tomorrow, leading to cloudy skies and isolated showers. Again, because of the maritime air mass, all your instability is back here in Virginia. And I'll show that in just a moment. But then look what happens on Saturday night through Sunday. The stalled boundary lifts northward as a warm front. Look at that deep tropical moisture on Sunday morning. And this tells me not necessarily severe thunderstorms, but torrential downpours. Someone is going to end up with some localized flash flooding out of this, and that continues on into Sunday afternoon with some very, again, when you're in this level here, you're like in torrential tropical downpour type level. You're in tropical storm type rainfall setting up here as a signal. So certainly the potential here for some very heavy rainfall. This doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be focused on Long Island. What it's showing here is what the potential is. Okay, so this could easily line up in southern New Jersey as it does on Long Island or Philadelphia or New York City or central New Jersey. So what I'm showing here is the potential here. We're going to use our mesoscale models this weekend to really iron out the details as we get closer. And then on Monday, we, of course, dry out. And as we head back to work, of course, much lower humidity and drier conditions, wouldn't you know it. Now, I do want to pull up the Cape here. And again, for this afternoon, not that impressive, but some areas do spike above 2,000 joules per kilogram, which means potential energy, especially over southern New Jersey. So we'll keep an eye on that. Now, there is our maritime air mass. Look at that. Clear as day. And again, there's already instability over the southern mid-Atlantic. So this tells me tomorrow, mostly clouds, a few isolated showers, occasional heavy downpour here and there. But if you have plans on Saturday, it's not a washout, but certainly not beach weather either. Then as we get to Sunday, this is where, again, I'm not looking at Sunday being a widespread severe weather day, but based on the precipitable water values and the lifting involved here, someone's going to get some very heavy rainfall out of this. So we're going to have to watch that very, very carefully as we move forward. So let's dive into the forecast for today. Hazy, hot, and humid. Temperatures in the upper 80s to lower 90s over the northern interior, mid to upper 90s on the I-95 corridor, lower to mid 90s along the coast. Heat index pushing over 100 degrees. And then here comes the thunderstorms this evening. We'll take a look at it for, let me refresh this real fast just in case. Sorry about that. Locked up. There we go. Okay, so we'll have to watch out for these thunderstorms again for this evening. Let me go back and take a look at the NAM guidance here just to kind of show you from a mesoscale perspective how this looks. And you can see what that potential is with these thunderstorms. So I'm looking at 3 to 6 p.m. over the northern interior, 4 to 8 p.m. around the I-95 corridor, and in southern New Jersey, we're looking at 6 to 9 p.m. with those thunderstorms, the way it's setting up. So again, stormy evening. By tomorrow morning, with the cold front presses south, we have more of a light northeasterly wind, low temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s over the northern interior, mid to upper 70s along the coast. Still steamy out there. By tomorrow afternoon, cloudy skies, a few isolated showers, a little bit of drizzle here and there. Look for high temperatures in the mid to upper 80s over the northern interior and along the coast, upper 80s to lower 90s on the I-95 corridor. Then Saturday night, tomorrow night into Sunday morning, the frontal boundary lifts northward as a warm front with showers and thunderstorms capable of some very heavy downpours. Look for low temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s over the northern interior, lower to mid 70s along the coast and in your urban areas. Sunday afternoon, showers and thunderstorms again. Someone's going to end up with some very heavy torrential downpours out of this with high temperatures, in the mid to upper 70s on Long Island, lower to mid 80s along the coast, mid to upper 80s on the I-95 corridor, and lower to mid 80s over the interior. Then finally on Monday, naturally, we clear out with scattered cloud cover. Look for low temperatures ranging from the upper 60s to lower 70s over the northern interior, lower to mid 70s along in the urban areas, and then for the afternoon hours, look for scattered cloud cover. Still threat for an isolated shower with high temperatures in the mid to upper 80s over the interior, upper 80s to lower 90s along the coast. On Tuesday, quiet, high pressure will start to give way by the afternoon, and we could see an isolated shower with a trough in the late afternoon and evening hours, but for the most part, just looking at scattered cloud cover. Look for Low temperatures in the lower to mid 70s, high temperatures in the mid to upper 80s over the interior and along the coast, upper 80s to lower 90s on the I-95 corridor. On Wednesday, high pressure and control with scattered cloud cover. Look for low temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s over the northern interior, lower to mid 70s along the coast and near urban areas. High temperatures in the lower to mid 80s over the northern interior, upper 80s to lower 90s on the I-95 corridor, mid to upper 80s along the coast. On Thursday, an area low pressure and a cold front move through with showers and thunderstorms. Some of them could be pretty strong. Have to keep an eye on that. Look for low temperatures in the mid to upper 60s over the interior, upper 60s to lower 70s in the suburbs, lower to mid 70s in your urban areas. High temperatures in the lower to mid 80s over the interior and along the coast, upper 80s to lower 90s on the I-95 corridor. And on Friday, that cold front will drop south with some showers lingering in the morning, followed by clearing skies in the afternoon and evening. Look for low temperatures in the mid to upper 60s over the northern interior, upper 60s to lower 70s along the coast and in your urban areas. High temperatures in the mid to upper 70s over the northern interior and upper 70s to lower 80s along the coast. That is your forecast discussion for today. I hope you enjoyed the Premium Public video discussion. In the meantime, stay safe out there.